Hey everybody, Ty here. Hope everyone is doing well. So, we talked yesterday about maybe doing a video on this today. This is that video. And there has been a small development with this. Nothing of major concern or nothing of major note as of right now. If we look at the satellite, nothing is imminently going to be developing, but the chance of this area having some sort of tropical feature beginning to emerge here has increased just slightly from 20 to 30%. It's pretty minute, and there's a chance that this still doesn't really even form at all. But the general rundown for the opportunity for development has a lot to do with this frontal boundary that's here. What's going to end up happening with this frontal boundary is going to stall out. And when it does, we're going to have a little zone where we could get a little bit of development to occur right here along these two orange lines here. These are our troughs. So we have our tropical trough here, and by the time we get between the fourth and the fifth, there seems to be a low pressure that tends to pop up right here. I've been seeing that on and off on the models, and even with this, like I said, I'm still not entirely certain that this becomes a storm, especially not a named storm, but there is some kind of development, be it tropical or not, that could be occurring here. And regardless of that development, it's going to definitely bring a lot of rain and thunderstorms over here towards the Florida Peninsula and eastern parts of the Florida Panhandle as well. So this is going to be a big disruptor for this weekend here. We know it's the holidays, so just make sure you're keeping an eye on the weather and have plans to go inside if the weather just isn't working in your favor here. But if we keep this moving, we'll see this trough move out. Storm chances will probably still remain, but the opportunity for tropical activity then shifts out towards the Atlantic. Maybe we would include the Carolinas on this one, but we'll have to see how things go from that point. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the parameters that we have here, and we're pretty much going to be focusing almost solely on this storm here, because if we were to go ahead and take a look at the wind shear across the board for the Atlantic, at least in the short term particularly, there's not really a whole lot to work with. It's really just the Gulf here that's got the best environment as it stands right now. There's plenty of moisture towards these regions. There's also light wind shear. Good environment. The waters are warm over here too. We've talked about that for a while. And we'll continue to see that trend occur at least for the next 5 to 7 days here. Now, as we get past that point here, we still continue to hold that, and then finally, by the time we get towards the 10-day period, that's when we start to see maybe the first signs of the main development region over here towards West Africa and the Cabo and Cape Verde Islands here becoming a point of interest. So we're going to be watching that area. If we can get any kind of moisture to come in, which I think will still be a problem due to the flow of wind on this map. I'm inclined to believe we're still going to be dealing with some of that Saharan dust and dry air over towards this region. So the opportunity for development seems very minimal at this time over towards the region. But with the Gulf having lighter wind shear over here, another thing that I think we're going to have to watch here is for any sort of frontal boundary that ends up coming through the lower 48 here. It could be a similar deal if anything stalls out or anything propagates on the south side of a frontal boundary here, or the tail end. We could get a little bit of quick development here. Typically in these situations, we don't have super strong storms from this. We don't get major hurricanes often, but they can happen. So definitely urge, not even caution, but I urge awareness at this point. But we'll continue to watch this go forward here, and then by the time we get towards the end of this model run, which will be the middle part of the month here, we'll be seeing a little bit more of a clearing over here towards the main development region and over towards the North Atlantic. Now again, the temperatures are going to be the big factor over towards all of our regions here. As I mentioned before, towards the Gulf, we're looking pretty impressive here. Here's a look at the sea surface temperatures towards the Gulf for today. We have plenty of areas where we're well above 80 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit or 29 degrees Celsius. Right here towards the western half of the Gulf, right off the coast, we have areas where we're hitting 90. Thankfully, we didn't have a storm that that's got an opportunity to develop all the way from the Caribbean upward, because then this could become a huge problem if this situation were to occur. It's something that we're going to have to watch pretty much throughout most of the season at this point. But over here towards this region's water's just as warm, so while I wouldn't say that, like I said, I wouldn't say that we're guaranteed a big storm. With these waters being as warm as they are, anything is possible. This loop current is synonymous for rapid intensification. Not to scare anyone, but still something that we'll need to keep an eye on. It's not the exact scenario that I would expect to play out, though. So let's go ahead now, take a look at the moisture content over towards these regions. And of course, as I mentioned before, towards the Atlantic right now, especially over towards the Gulf, is where we have that moisture being at its most optimal within that 4 to 5 day time frame. After that, dry air does start to come back in, but after a while we start to kind of level back out by the time we get past that 1 week time frame. And then slowly but surely, if we look over towards the main development region, we start to see the introduction of more moisture coming into play. And at this point, it's where I start to see the opportunity for a little bit of development beginning to occur here. Now, we'll have to watch out for any sort of storm systems that come off the West African coast here. This is where we'll start to see our storms begin to develop. With the way our current setup is with the upper level winds, I think most of these will probably stay out to sea as of right now. Of course, we get further out in the range, it's harder to tell what's going on. So, like I said, a lot of questions remain in regards to that. So now, we're going to go ahead and take a look at our ensemble members here. And in the short term, again, like I mentioned before, all the attention for the Atlantic is going to be focused towards the eastern half of the Gulf. So these little red numbers right here are your point of interest. Like I said, none of these model runs that I've seen, none of the ensemble members have shown anything that leads me to believe that there's going to be a super strong storm like a category 2 or higher, or anything like that, or even a hurricane. A few of these barely even have it getting a tropical storm if it does develop at all. But if it does, things could get a little bit dicey over here. I don't think it will be anything to prompt any sort of mass evacuation or anything for the holidays, but it is going to make the weather very messy across the southeast. And as we go further along here, again, we'll still be keeping focus close to home, but we're going to start to see some potential beginning to increase over here towards the main development region going forward. Again, with the ridging over here, just out towards the north central part of the Atlantic, a lot of storms that could have the chance of developing over here is probably going to get thrown right into an area of wind shear which exists right here. And as a result, we're not going to see a whole lot here. This is an area that's kind of interesting, but of course we're at the end of the model run here, so there is a lot of room for variability, of course. So now we're going to go ahead and quickly take a look at the North Atlantic here and get an idea of what to expect going forward here. Like I said, not really the most favorable blend of models here in regards to development. If anything, we're kind of favoring development maybe past Florida in the short term. Then as we go further along here, maybe you might want to pay attention a little bit closer to Cape Verde, Cabo Verde, and areas to the south here. But as you can see, it really looks like we're dealing with something that's going to try to develop maybe off the East Florida coast right now. What we were looking at with the GFS ensemble combination with the operational run still kind of leans towards a little bit of development over towards West Florida at first, and then maybe deepening ever so slightly as we go towards the Carolinas. There's still question as to whether the center of circulation, if it were to develop, were to impact land. So, like I said, a lot of different variables with this. We're just kind of in a wait and see mode with this for right now. That's all we really can do at this point. Now, at the end of the model run here, this is a 10-day stretch that we're looking at, by the way. You can start to see low pressures trying to sneak off that West African coast. Do I think any of these will be any major significance anywhere past that 60-degree west line, which is about here? I would say no. Large part of that's going to be due to that ridge that we have here. Winds are going to be really strong here at the upper levels, so it's going to either limit storm development or it's going to just carry anything that does develop out to sea and end up pretty much tearing it apart there. So that's pretty much all we got for this tropical update here. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Make sure you smash that like button, hit that subscribe button. Definitely leave me any thoughts that you have on the tropics so far in the comments, of course. We're already 1 month into hurricane season, so passing by pretty quickly, and we would prefer that things stay a little bit more on the down low right now. With that being said, hope you all enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.